So we're live now, huh?
We will be in just a second.
Oh no. Now I'm nervous.
Don't worry, you got
It's
this.
conversations.
Okay, you guys are live.
We're good. All right, cool. We're back. I'm Rob Blair and Alvina Blair. And today we have Juan Delgado.
Yes.
Thank you for coming. We appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks for the invite.
So Alvina and I, we've been meeting with people, been interviewing people that we like, obviously, for one, right? We consider you a friend, but we're trying to really shine a light on people that we, in our opinion, are successful. And we look at you as someone that's successful. Now, success can mean so many different things to so many different people, right?
Exactly.
Usually it's with the gold medal or the championship or all the money, but what we don't really celebrate as much is our own successes, and we've seen things in you, getting to know you more, that is pretty impressive, and we consider it a success.
Okay.
And so we want to expose that to people because you're in our community. And I'll let you kind of get into who you are and what you do and where you came from, because I think that has been a catalyst to your success. And again, we'll kind of get into that aspect of it. But why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm a local real estate agent that typically works mostly Thurston County. Been doing it for 6 years, but a little bit about myself. I am married, been going to be married for 25 years come December.
Congrats.
And I am a military veteran, served 22 years.
Thank you.
And I love to give back to my community. My passion is really helping the military family and helping anybody that wants that desire to learn. I love teaching, and I love being around people, and I love seeing other people succeed, especially in this business, whether it's a lender or it's a real estate agent.
What made you want to join the military? Because sometimes people just do it because their buddies are doing it right out of high school. I mean, tell us a little bit about how you were raised and, kind of your passion and motivation.
Okay. I grew up in a small town in Oregon. Population of the city was about 800 people. Small AA school.
Small.
Small.
You know
small.
other people. You know everyone.
It was well connected. We know a lot of people. I mean, I can go through my Facebook and see all the kids that I grew up with. But I always had a passion for drawing and architectural and stuff like that. So that's really where my path led me. I like math and I like design and all that kind of stuff. So wasn't really exposed to the college. Hey, this is what you got to do until you're there. And when you're there, it's already too late. And so I did the community college thing, and it gets, even back then it was pretty expensive. I don't come nowhere near from family that has money or anything like that. So I had to look at different alternatives. So the military was one of the alternatives, and they did offer me a position. I scored high enough. I didn't do great in high school. Let's put it out there. I was probably a 2.0 student. And that was more because I probably was more towards doing the sports and board, but I consider myself a smart guy. But the effort wasn't in there because I didn't know what the effort was for. So I didn't have that guidance. So I joined the military. I took the ASVAB test, and I scored high enough where the year that I picked my MOS, I think there was only like 12 people that got that MOS for that whole 1994. And so I was a technical engineer specialist, computer-aided drafting, construction surveying, soils mechanics, and engineering. And so that that gave me a lot of position. I tested high enough to do that, and that's what I wanted to do. And I stood firm that that's the job that I wanted. And so in the military back then, we had the don't ask, don't tell. They were drawing the military down. So they were being selective on who they brought in at that time. And so they were pretty selective of what jobs you got. And so I was fortunate enough to get this MOS. And I know there's going to be people out there that have my MOS that I got to train while I was in the military. I trained the Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines. I was an instructor for 4 years. That's
awesome.
So I have a lot of connections in the military.
Yeah.
But anyways, that MOS really opened my eyes to gave me exposure to a lot of things that probably the typical soldier doesn't get. Um, but I was actually only going to do the 5 years and get out. And then one of my positions before I went to Bosnia was working in the G3 for 10th Mountain Division. So I got to see what was really going on in the Balkans. And so I won't say volunteered, but I kind of volunteered for a position to go to the Balkans. And when I was there, got to do a lot of fun things. We were transitioning from, if you want to look it up, from an I force to an S force, which was moving to a stabilization where refugees were coming back.
So what's I force then?
I can't remember exactly what that term was for, but I know the S was stabilization. So we went in. There was a civil war between 3 different ethnic groups, and one of the ethnic groups was pretty much getting wiped out. So President Clinton went in, and we intervened to stop that ethnic cleansing of the Muslims. And so when I went in there, we were stabilizing. Refugees were coming back. So my job was me and another soldier, same MOS, we went around the base camps and shout out to Ferdinand out there in Zuera. And so we got to go around base camps and actually survey. So when the landowners came back, we can give them money for the land use. But it also opened up my eyes to what we do as a military when it comes to nation building. I know a lot of people don't like that term, but we do a lot of good across the globe. And that most people are exposed to what they see on TV, shoot them up, bang them up. And
and I was going to ask you about that because you said I was exposed. I saw what they were doing there. And obviously that was enough for you to I want to volunteer. And I don't know if your wife now knew about that based on what we were talking about kind of in the green room per se, right? It was weird. He was voluntold, I think, right?
No. Well, the thing is, you don't know what you don't know.
Sure.
And that's life. A lot of people are scared of the unknown and they don't take the chance. So when I was exposed, I was going to get out. I had a 5-year enlistment. That was the requirement for this job, a 5-year enlistment. I was just going to get out. After being there and seeing the good that we do, I decided at that moment when I was deployed that I was going to make it a career. So that was a life-defining deployment for me.
Yeah, it's a lot of, you can see some similarities with just what you're doing now with your business, which we'll kind of get into. But you're coming from a place of service. Literally you're in the service, right? But it's like that term comes from not just military action and bombing and fighting. There's service, right? So you're trying to stabilize regions in the world, right? And help, people that really need help, that don't have the ability to help themselves. And that's, again, I think there's absolute parallel with what you're doing now within the community, both military, and then we'll kind of get into even the Hispanic population as well, which is a huge need. It's kind of how we met originally, is like, hey, I need a Spanish speaking hello, right? And so it's funny how all that kind of comes together. But
I would say that after I made the decision that I did get married 25 years ago, right after that deployment. So
it was afterwards. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so my wife, she stood strong with me through deployments to Iraq, Afghanistan, tour in Korea. When Iraq started, I had a 1.5-year-old daughter. I was in the invasion portion of it, got to jump in the front and do some air assaulting and to put in some fuel blivets. And so as the tanks came up, they can continue the fight and keep going. But then I got back, spent 4 months back, and found myself in another restricted tour in Korea. So at that moment, I was like, what is the Army doing to me? Do I need to change course? But so I went to Korea after 4 months. I was literally gone for 24 months out of my daughter's first 30 months. And so a lot of times I look at my career and go, wow, did I really do that? Did I really sacrifice? Did my family sacrifice probably more than me, because I knew what was going on. They were in the background. My kids probably didn't know much better, but my wife, oh man, she's a really strong woman to put up with the stuff that I put her through.
Yeah. And you touched on this. We were looking, we did some stalking. So we'll admit, this is probably a little creepy, but I did see a video that you posted on Facebook,
Okay.
on no, it was
It was good.
yeah,
It was
it was on your page. It wasn't this like
Okay.
anonymous thing,
Yeah.
but you were talking about it was on Veterans Day, and people were thanking you, but you
Oh,
were thanking other veterans. But you said something, and you literally just touched on it again. Is thank you to the families of the veterans because they gave just as much sacrifice
Right.
as the veterans,
yeah.
right? I mean, you're putting yourself out there risking, but they're risking, their husband or wife or their brother or their sister or their dad.
Mhm.
And so when we say thank you for your service, and when you say that, I know I see it.
Yeah.
It's an emotional thing because it is a massive sacrifice. I mean, 24 months out of the first 30,
Months of my daughter's life.
that's a sacrifice.
It is.
There's a lot of firsts that you miss because you're protecting us. And so when we say that, thank you, we
I appreciate it.
absolutely mean that.
Thank you's not enough.
Yeah.
No, it's
And that's why it's a passion. And I know it's a passion for you to help military families get into homes and stabilize something, because I know probably in the back of your mind, if I was in your shoes, or if I was, overseas serving my country, I'd want to know where my family was, that it was safe,
Mhm.
that it wasn't some apartment or military housing or whatever that might
Mhm.
be. I mean, you need to do that obviously for a
Mhm.
certain amount of time, but there is something to be said about that, knowing that, okay, at least this is something that I'm contributing because I can't be there.
Right.
And VA is we always call it a VA loan, but it's absolutely it's a benefit, and
Mhm.
it's an earned benefit.
The funny thing is, when I do talk to sellers, we're leaving a very competitive sellers market,
Mhm.
and I do a lot of listings. And it's funny you say that. One of the things that I always ask a seller when they're not military, because a lot of my clients are military,
Mhm.
but from time to time I get sellers that never served, and they hire me because that's their way of giving back. And but another way that I try to convince them that the VA loan is actually a very strong loan is because I ask them, "What is your price of freedom? Is your price of freedom the $10,000 that you're going to lose because you're going to take this other offer, or is your price of freedom not even worth $10,000 to you?" And I've had some sellers say, "You know what? The price of freedom is worth more than that,
Mhm.
and let's go ahead and take this military family's offer."
That's amazing. Yeah.
I mean, we have to use the Fair Housing Act, but at the same time, I'm an advocate to our military families because a lot of sellers are not educated on the VA process, and even a lot of agents are not educated on the VA process.
It's
And
true.
so I try to be an advocate for our military families by doing one-on-one coaching with agents and actually letting them know, hey, the military VA loan is actually a very strong loan.
Mhm.
So I think that most agents need to know that there's different loan packages and what each loan means.
Mhm.
And so I find myself being an advocate for our military families,
Because
even
your
even
passion, it's your
even
passion.
when
It's right there.
even
Yeah.
when the offer comes in and I don't know those people at all.
Mhm.
As long as I know that the loan officer on the other end is being straight with me and says, "Hey, we can close it. There's not going to be any issues." Um, I have no problem advocating for a military family.
The lack of education, within the industry, as
Oh,
well
yeah.
as just people that are just trying to buy a home, including veterans. Um, there's always like this assumption that the appraisal is going to be harder because it's VA, and it's not. I mean, we've actually interviewed appraisers like, hey, how do you look at things? I mean, obviously there's going to be health and safety, and there's things based on the fact that it is this type of financing, but it doesn't mean it's harder.
Mhm.
It's just we're protecting the veteran
Mhm.
in this
Right.
case. Like,
Yeah.
hey, we're lending you 100% of this, so we got to make sure that the asset is going to be something that's feasible, but we don't want to put you in a position that is going to harm you financially, physically, right? I mean, a lot of it's health and safety stuff. So, you know, having those conversations with, even on the selling side, where it's like, hey, yeah, it's VA. Well, isn't that a tougher, more strict type appraisal? Like, well, no.
Right.
No, I mean, are you concerned about this? I mean, because those are health and safety things anyways. Why wouldn't you just have that remedied anyways? It's kind of a non-conversation once we
Mhm.
kind of get done. It's like, yeah, just get that done, and this is
Mhm.
an amazing deal.
Right. The only pitfall that I see to the VA loan, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that there is appraisal times that if the appraiser decides to sit on it to the last minute, it does take longer than the FHA or the conventional.
At times there has
Yeah.
been. Yeah. I mean, you over in Eastern Washington, I think there's 1.5 appraisers that are still qualified to do a VA loan, right?
Right.
Just because that the appraisers that are qualified to do it are aging out, and
Mhm.
that's a problem. That's the industry problem right now,
Mhm.
which is a lack of appraisers.
Right.
But right now, just based on volume, we're getting them done,
Right.
really quickly. They're
Yeah,
really jumping on it.
but when we write an offer, it's hard to say, hey, yeah, we can get it done in 14 days
Yeah.
because we have that limitation
Yeah,
where
sure.
if an appraiser sits on it. So
Yeah.
that's the only thing that I have qualms with the VA.
No, I agree 100% on that.
Yeah.
But VA, I mean, going back to some of those benefits, I mean, we've had situations where the appraisal came in low,
Mhm.
and we've been able to talk to VA directly, and we, as in the borrower, saying, hey, this is putting me and my family in a kind of a predicament now, and
Mhm.
the VA was like, okay, we'll do it. I mean, which is amazing. I mean, that's
Yeah.
people don't know about that benefit with VA. So, but kind of back to you, right?
Yeah.
That's why we're
Oh,
here.
no.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm trying to divert from
Yeah,
me.
no, it's good.
not here, my friend, not happening.
Yeah.
But no, it's back to you serving and then emerging from the military. What was that like? I mean, where did you? Because we just came back from training, and a friend of ours is a trainer, national trainer for our continuing education, and he was telling a story during a break about his uncle that was incarcerated for 46 years, and when he got out into the world, back in the world, you
Mhm.
always hear that in the movies, like when the military,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, what are you gonna do back in the world? It's like because you're so
Institutionalized.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right.
Like he was telling the story about he was trying to get to his aunt's house to see her, and they gave him a phone, and then he walked into a mini mart trying to buy a map, and like, why do you need a map? You have a phone. He didn't even know that there's maps on his phone, and
Mhm.
so just right. And he,
Mhm.
he talking to him, his name's Ken Perry, was talking to his uncle about it. He's like, I wanted to go back because
Mhm.
that's what I knew,
Mhm.
and so 22 years of service, right? Or 23?
22.
22 years of service.
22, 2, and 17.
Yeah.
Who's
Yeah,
counting?
Yeah. I mean,
Every bit counts.
you probably have that moment like,
Mhm.
do I need to go back? What do I need
Oh,
to do?
no.
No,
It-
you didn't?
No, I actually submitted for retirement for my 20-year mark.
Okay.
And
Did you know what you wanted to do?
no, actually, when I got out, I got I did an internship with the Corps of Engineers.
Okay.
So I did an internship down in Sacramento,
Mhm.
California, and so I was looking at taking a position there, and so I kind of like, okay, I'll do that. But when reality hits, you're like, do I want to uproot my family? I had my son was going to be a freshman in high school.
Yeah.
My daughter was going into junior high, and we decided not to. So I was like, you know what? What can I do that I don't have to punch in a clock and be on somebody else's terms? I have a pension,
Mhm.
and I knew what I was going to be making outside of after I retired, and so I actually considered being a home inspector.
Okay.
And
I can
so-
see that.
I can see that, right? Yeah.
And so going through the process, I actually winded up getting shoulder surgery during my
Okay.
retirement year, and that kind of went out the window.
Hmm.
But when I was going through the process of being an inspector, got to meet some real estate agents, and I'm like, how much you make?
Mhm.
And so I got exposed to it in that way. But aside from homes that I bought over my career, I also got exposed there, but I didn't know what you really made.
Mhm.
You just hear percentages and
It was
whatever.
worth your time.
If it was
right?
worth my
Yeah,
time.
Right.
sure.
And I decided that I definitely didn't want to punch a clock, but I also knew that I didn't want to crawl under homes. So the next logical space was to go ahead and try to get my real estate license.
Yeah.
So I went into the mindset that my first year, Keller Williams, amazing brokerage.
Mhm.
That I interviewed a whole bunch of brokerages actually when I first got licensed, and went to Keller Williams. and really enjoyed my time there. Did 3 years there. But my first year, I went to the mindset, I went to every opportunity that there was a class. And so if I have my Keller Williams peeps that are still in the business, they can attest that I was there. If there was a class, I was there.
Yeah.
And I told myself, whether I do one transaction or I do 100 transactions, it doesn't matter. I need to set my foundation correctly in order for me to be successful in this business, because there's no quit. I was going to do this and I wasn't going to get another job.
Yeah.
All in.
So I was all in, and it was more of a mindset. And so I knew early on, I read everything I can read. I listened to everything I can listen to. I was completely all in. I mean, I only did 6 transactions. My first transaction took 6 months to do, but I didn't care because I was like, okay, I'm going to do everything I could. And so I actually built my business on door knocking. And so I'd go out there 2 to 3 times a week for 4 to 6 hours, and I'd knock on doors. And so I actually still get business from that. And even though I only did it for about 6 months, and I still get people that I door knocked that reach out to me and say, hey,
That's awesome.
we've been following you on social media. You're doing great. We'd like to give you an opportunity. And I'm like, okay. And so that's basically how I started my business. But door knocking actually opened up my eyes to other things. And every day is a learning day. That's how I look at it. Every day you're going to learn something new. And you can learn from the people that had their license for a day. You can learn from everybody. And as long as you have an open mind that everybody has something to contribute and learn from, I think that your business will continue to grow.
So you're an engineer, right? That your mind is an engineer. So you're very systematic. You're probably very visual. You like to see and track and follow and know. When we first met, like one of the very first meetings we had, you were talking about your pillars, your 4 pillars, and getting to know you more. It's like, okay, that is an engineer's mind, but now where you're at with EXP, because of your team that you're building, the people that you're helping and pouring into them, it's like, because right now we're in a market that real estate and mortgage rates are really high. We just came from a market, seller's market, where people are overpaying 10%, 20%, and now we're in a position now where we can actually negotiate and have some type of neutral ground, at least, to where we can have a conversation. But that's kind of scary, right?
Okay.
You'd said that at one point. It's like, there is some type of fear based on all these rapid changes, but if I just stick with what I know and the process and building these things, so that's back to kind of what I originally said when we opened about success. I'm looking at that as like, okay, here's a guy that really didn't come from much, right? I mean, you said, right?
No.
And there's a theme there. There's a lot of people that we talk to that do very well, that are very successful, have this drive because they don't want to ever go back, but they also don't really have a fear because they know what it's like to eat, white bread with cinnamon on it and, ketchup packets and whatever, right? I mean, they're going to do whatever they can do. And some of the stories kind of off camera that we've heard from some of our friends that we've been interviewing, it's like, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, like a scavenger hunt in a neighborhood, and like, hey, me and my friends are doing the scavenger hunt do you have toilet paper? Because they didn't have enough money to buy toilet paper. They used newspaper. I mean, resourceful, right? And so back to what you're doing as far as like, I'm coming from, yeah. Well, everyone has toilet paper now after the pandemic, apparently, right? It's stacked high.
Yeah.
But, coming 22 years of military service, where here's everything that I've done, and I know what this process looks like. You're a systems guy. And that's attractive to someone that is not a systems person, that they might be really good at talking to people, but they're just a mess as far as like, how do I figure this out? And so that's one thing that, getting to know you more was really cool and successful, because you have like this way about you where you're very much like a teacher.
I like to coach and mentor.
Absolutely. And so,
And
but
approachable.
exactly, just even talking to Alvina, like when we first met, on the lending side, I mean, she's newer to the industry. You're giving her tips and ideas and strategies, and I appreciate that, and she appreciates that. So it's like, and I don't know, it's just really cool. So we just wanted to compliment you on that, and think, you're doing everything right, especially now when there's people in this industry that really need that type of help.
I think that a lot of people, whether they're in lending or they're real estate agents, when they first start, they like to be exposed to everything. And I look at real estate like a pie. If you focus on a small slice and you eat it, you'll understand the flavor, and then you continue. A lot of people, what they do is they grab that pie and throw their face in it and want to do
It's a pie eating contest, right?
a pie eating contest, and you just eat this whole pie, and at the end of this pie you get all this information, but you get paralyzed, or you get like a gluttony of, okay, now what I want to do, all they want to do is take a nap. So I like to, going back to those foundations.
Now I'm hungry now.
So true.
So going back to those foundational pillars, I firmly believe that, and I'm sure you want to know what those 4 pillars are, at least to the audience.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
you kind of know them. My 4, I look at it as, if whether you're in the real estate industry, that we're going to have storms, and we're going to weather the storms. It's the people that stay dry that are going to survive. And if you get wet, you might be okay, but if you get super soaked, you're done. And so I always tell people, when you start business, you want to look at it as a pie and focus just in a specific area where you live. Like I told you earlier, I work Thurston County. I do come up to Pierce County, don't get me wrong, but that's because I have my pillars in place. So if you're going to go through a storm and you only have one of your pillars down, it's like having one wheel. And if you're having one wheel, you're on a unicycle. And if you're working, I'm going to say Olympia, I live in Olympia, but if you're working up here, say in Seattle, how far are you going to get on a unicycle while the storm is blasting you? You're not going to get very far. You're going to be washed out. If you have 2 pillars down, which is 2 wheels, you're driving a motorcycle or a bicycle. It's still going to be pretty dangerous, and it's going to be kind of rough, and you're probably not going to make it through, right? You're going to get in a car accident. You're going to be washed out. If you have 3 of your pillars down, you are on a motorcycle, maybe a sidekick with your little goggles.
That's right.
And and you're probably going to get home from Seattle in that storm, but how wet are you going to be?
Right, it's a rough ride.
You're going to be miserable. You're going to be struggling. You're going to not know where your business is coming from. But if you have all 4 pillars down, you have 4 wheels. What are you driving? You're driving a Pinto, you're driving a Tesla, or you're driving something in between.
Right.
And I also have a theory on what people drive is one personality, but also can be their level of success. All right. But even if you drive a Pinto, you're not going to get wet. You can still go from Seattle to Olympia and survive the storm. Now, you might not be making enough to buy that Tesla, but you're still going to stay in the business and survive the storm. And so you're probably wondering what those pillars are.
Yeah.
All right. So my 4 pillars is, 1, is lead generation. You have to know where your business is coming from. And that goes back to the pie. What I do is when I sit down with somebody, I find what they like to do. And what they like to do is what we're going to focus on how you're going to get your business. I mean, there's some people that are introverts, so we have to use a specific methods.
Sure.
There's literally over 50 different ways of getting business. And I've tried a lot of them. And the way I do business, I know where I'm getting my business from. So I don't worry about where my business is coming from. So you need to know where your business is coming from. That's your lead generation pillar. All right. And it might take a little while to get that set up, but if you get it strong, you'll be fine. All right. Your next one is, we're in a business where we're dealing with a transaction of moving title from one person to another, whether it's with the lender or as a real estate agent facilitating that transaction. We have a lot of people that put their hands in there, but you have to know your part. So you have to know your contracts.
Mhm.
If you know your contracts and you stay up to date on what the industry is doing, because we just had a forms change.
Yep.
If you know what's going on, when the time comes and you need to write up an offer in 15 minutes, you know exactly how to do it. I know my first offer took me like 8 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's because I try to do it on my own
Mhm.
and learn it. But if you know your contracts, you can easily understand the contracts, and then you can easily write them and convey that information to your clients. What are they signing? And if you know what you can explain to them what they're signing. It's a trust
Mhm.
between client, which will help your referral business. The third pillar is skills. Skills is something that can be worked on. If there's any pillar as a new agent that you need to work on, is your skills. That means you have to know what the market's doing, learn the market, and then when you do have those clients, knowing what to say, when to say it, and how to say it,
Mhm.
and also when to keep your mouth shut. Because believe it or not, sometimes we
You
will.
learn that in 20-some years of marriage too, right?
Yeah. And so keep your
You
I'm
one,
sorry.
learn that?
one of the things that as realtors is that a lot of us don't listen, and keeping our mouth shut makes us listen, because listening is where we actually find the fine details of what they're looking for.
Mhm.
Because sometimes you're thinking, okay, what's the next question I need to ask them? And that's something that we have what we call scripts,
Mhm.
things to say, but it's internalizing them and doing them enough with partners to help you get better. So if a client says something, you don't sound like you don't know what you're talking about.
Mhm.
And if you do know what the market's doing, you have a great lenders like you guys, where I can go, hey, Alvina, hey, Rob, I got a client this is their situation. What loan package do you think we should do? They're not VA, but what
Yeah.
what kind of programs are out there for this specific person?
Sure.
And then you're always educating yourself, and that's part of your skills.
Mhm.
And so you have to know what the Fed's doing. You have to know what the bond market's doing. You have to know
I don't
what your
know if
lenders
the Fed knows what the Fed's doing, but
Oh,
yeah,
that's a different
That's a
story.
different
we
story.
do know what
It's
that
not a
they've
tough time
done.
for that.
Yeah,
Oh gosh.
yeah.
Right. But
Yeah, we know what. Well, yeah.
I'm
know
not
what
going to
they've
get
done.
political here,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but but that's part of the skills portion
Sure.
of the pillars, is being in the know and knowing how to articulate what's going on in the current market. All right. And then, which brings us to my fourth pillar, and that's basically your team or your alignment. Who are you in business with? Because the reality of it is, most of the business comes from realtor to lender for the majority. I'm not saying all business, but when that happens, that client is trusting you, that you're connecting them with the person that is actually going to help them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if you're just throwing business to a lender and you don't know the lender, and all of a sudden it can come back and bite you in the butt.
Yeah.
And so they're not going to blame the lender. They're going to blame the realtor, because the realtor is the one that referred them.
Well, yeah. Go ahead.
And we take that very serious. Like if you're like you said, trusting us to take care of that client for you. Well, you're also our client.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you say customer and client?
Well, yeah. We have to take care of our client first, right?
Mhm.
Because our biggest job, one of our biggest jobs, is reputation preservation,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you've built enough trust with this person that wants to buy or sell, right? To where okay, they're working with you now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a relationship there. If we're coming in the 11th hour because you're introducing us, we don't take that lightly,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not our relationship yet, it's yours. And so our relationship's with you. And we have the exact same conversation with the listing agent when you're writing up an offer for a client and you're submitting it, and our letter is included in that offer. We're calling the listing agent saying, okay, this is what they've done. Obviously, we're not going to say anything that's private, right? But this is everything that we've done to get them pre-approved. And we say that exact term, like it's reputation preservation. You got that listing because of who you are and what you've done for people in the community. We don't take that lightly, because at the end of the day, you're the one that told them to take this offer with this lender, right? And so that's something that is missed, because it's like, let's just throw it against the wall and see if we can get it. It's like, well, there's pre-qualification and pre-approval. I mean, we will fully, pre-underwrite the
Right.
loan and know, so we don't have those issues come up.
Mhm.
But all that is based on communication,
Correct.
right? And
And that goes back to what I think alignment is, because
Absolutely.
you have agents that have different skill sets. They've been in the business one day, they might have been in the business 25 years.
Sure.
And I'll confess, whenever I'm submitting an offer, I'm working on the buyer side. I want to know who the agent is that has that listing.
Mhm.
Are they somebody that just does 2 listings a year, or is it somebody that's really active? And if they're super active, what is their supports? What is their support team?
Mhm.
Because if you can have really successful agents, but they have a crappy support team, that transaction is going to be poo-poo.
Right.
All right.
Yep.
So you have a lot of agents out there knocking it out of the park, but their support teams are probably not where they need to be.
Mhm.
And so sometimes you hit those rocky moments.
Mhm.
So just the level of transactions is, I don't consider it being, because you're part of a team to get this buyer to a house or that seller to his next location.
Mhm.
And so the beauty of being a real estate agent, you can work both sides
Yeah.
Mhm.
and you get to see things from both perspectives all the time. People that don't know.
Mhm.
I mean, I've built relationships over my career where the other agent on the other side was a newer agent, and now they're partnered with me
Mhm.
just because I treated them like they needed to be treated.
Yeah.
You always want to treat I have a slogan called respect all,
Mhm.
fear none.
Mhm.
And I put that on all my stuff. That was actually a slogan for my first unit.
Yeah.
And that motto always stuck out with me
Mhm.
through my military career. Even after I was in other units that had different mottos,
Mhm.
that one always stood, that everybody deserves the respect. Now, you can lose my respect,
Yeah. Right.
Sure.
but I think that
Yeah.
as humans, we don't know where other people's, where they've been.
Yeah.
And we don't know everybody's situation.
Mhm.
But if we treat everybody with respect, and they will come along.
Mhm.
And you can't fear anybody.
No.
All right. You have to not be afraid to do a lowball offer for your buyers.
Mhm.
If that's what they want, you can tell them the pitfalls of lowball offer,
Sure.
but at the same time, you can't be afraid to put a term in the contract that might offend the other
Mhm.
side. But that comes with the communication of what agent you're dealing with on the other side.
Sure.
Sometimes you have to, hey, I'm going to be sending you this. Keep in mind, this is openings of negotiations.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So,
It's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that.
we're opening negotiations, and I've had sellers on the other end accept a lowball offer, and I'm like completely blown away. Like,
You
dang,
never know, right?
you don't know the other side situation until you do something.
So we were, I should say you two were introduced originally because you were looking for Spanish speaking.
I reached out to him
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. No,
because I was.
So she's the worse stalker than me.
I,
I just found a video on your Facebook after we became friends. She's like, hey, this guy speaks Spanish.
God puts people in your path, and that's what it really came down to. And Facebook. And Juan Delgado popped up. I'm like, agent. I guess I should just call him. And I did. And I was a little too honest.
I actually put her through the grilling machine
He did.
on the initial call.
I said, I'm a Spanish speaking lender. And he's like, all right, let's hear your pitch. And I'm like, okay, here we go. So
in Spanish or
in
English?
Spanish, no.
Yeah,
Spanish.
I actually-
he wanted to hear.
Let's hear it right now. What'd you say? in
I
Spanish?
actually had her.
What did you ask me?
I
I can't
asked.
remember.
I asked you some questions in Spanish
Yeah.
to see if
Yeah.
you can answer them.
Yes.
And I forgot the exact questions,
Yeah.
but it was more in the tune of something that I would ask a lender,
Mhm.
but in Spanish, and see how the lender
Well,
would
let's hear it.
reply.
Let's see how she answers.
Keep it simple.
You put me on the spot right
I
now,
know.
and
Well, you
Yeah,
put-
Rob.
I can't
Yeah.
think of a
Yeah,
question.
Rob. No.
¿Cómo? Let me see. ¿Cómo le dices a una cliente que quiere agarrar el préstamo que no sabe si es ilegal o es...
So, si tú me das el número, yo le llamo a la gente o el cliente y le digo, pues Juan Delgado me dio el número para conectar con usted. Dice que estás buscando una casa, pero necesitas un préstamo primero. Y yo soy prestamista y yo te puedo ayudar con eso.
¿Y cuánto tiempo tienes siendo
¿Este trabajo?
este trabajo? Sí,
En febrero va a ser 1 año.
en febrero 1 año.
Mhm.
So we
Yeah.
just, I
And then he
forgot
said,
What,
he goes,
what
okay,
they said,
you
right?
passed.
that's what I said.
He
Okay.
said, okay, you passed. You speak Spanish.
And so then,
Sábado domingo.
so I said, yeah, you passed. Okay, when do you guys
Yeah.
want to get together?
Yeah.
So
and-
she disclosed that you were a lender at the
yes.
time.
Mhm.
And so I said, well, when do you guys want to get
Yeah.
together? So we
Yeah.
met in DuPont.
See?
And believe it or not, they paid.
I know that word.
Yeah.
See?
Sí.
I don't know, too.
Le
And-
dije que mi esposo ha trabajado en los préstamos por 20 años ya. Has it been 20 years for you?
18.
Oh, 18.
18 años.
18
Sí.
Just over 18, yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, close. It's close. Like
Yeah.
lending, close enough. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
terrible.
No, so we met in DuPont
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
had a great
Yeah.
Yeah,
lunch. And I looked at my clock and I'm like, wow.
I know. We had several hours there. It's a great
It
conversation.
was.
So
Well, and it's interesting because, I mean, you did door knocking. I mean, she's like, hey, you speak Spanish. I'm just going to call and
I'm
introduce
just gonna
myself,
call.
which I can appreciate both because
Mhm.
it's,
it's similar.
I mean,
It's cold calling.
I don't know if anyone's actually told you no, though. I think she has way better luck than you and I would, but
No, I was going to say no to
I
her.
don't.
Were you?
Nobody's returned my call.
You
There's
believe
been
it,
a couple. Yeah.
believe it or not, right now I get between 3 and 5 calls a week
Yeah.
of from lenders that want to
Like I
meet
said,
up.
it's meant to be.
that want to meet up and go over business plans and how we can help each other.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I realize in this whole thing is the market has really changed in the last, since basically March.
Mhm.
And a lot of people in the last 2 to 3 years, most of their business was refi business.
Mhm.
And so now those are the lenders that are reaching out and
Oh, we
trying
know.
to figure it out.
Right? Yeah.
And so
Sorry about that.
no, so I'm like, when she called me, I was like, okay, here's another
Here
lender.
she goes.
Here's another lender
Let's
trying to
listen
pitch me.
her.
And then she gave me a value proposition that's not very common in the lending industry, is where they can actually speak Spanish fluently.
Mhm.
And so I was like, okay, let me ask her a couple of questions in
Yeah,
Spanish.
that's
It was a
awesome.
lot better than whatever I just did here.
That's awesome.
But
It's like,
Um,
okay.
Well, 'cause
but
you weren't-
She doesn't sound like she speaks Spanish,
Yeah.
but
yeah, so I was like, you know what? I can always use a lender, and it's a great opportunity to go meet. She did
Yeah.
say how long you were in the business,
Mhm.
and so I said, okay, that's somebody else that I can get to meet and maybe build a relationship
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Day one was part of, I mean,
Comunidad.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Ryan set me up for that.
that goes back to alignment. You
Yeah.
already had the alignment of your
Right?
husband,
Yeah.
and so you have a leg up on a lot of lenders
Yeah.
that most lenders don't have,
Right.
unless you're a power team,
Mhm.
a husband-wife team, or have somebody that really is invested in your success. It's really hard out there for realtors and for lenders.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I am fortunate in that regard. And, of course, my husband's helping me, but I have a whole office
Mhm.
full of people that are more than willing to help. And that's great. So,
That's pillar number
Yeah.
4.
yeah. I got 4 now.
Yeah.
I'm working on 3. I'm
We're-
always
we're-
learning.
We're
I'm
working
always
on the
learning.
tank tracks right now that we want. We want stability. We
Yeah.
don't want to,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
Good.
I mean, her being, and these are things that I was kind of naive to, just because I'm not in that world, just like people that don't understand, what happens when people are serving the country, like a veteran coming back. It's like really what that sacrifice is, in the Hispanic community. I mean, we've seen stats that 70% of all purchases between now and 2040 will be Hispanic.
Right.
And that's not necessarily just coming, straight from Mexico, but it's, first, second, third generation, right? But and so they might come in and meet with me and have a conversation just like we're having right now in English. And it was something in the back of my mind I've always kind of thought, like, I wonder if, because it's all based on comfort level,
Mhm.
right? And that alignment piece that you're talking about, that 4th pillar. So we'll be in the office together, we're talking in English, and then they'll look at her and speak Spanish. Like, I just want to make sure I understand this because that's what they're comfortable with. That's what they, and so it's really cool to be able to offer that to our clients. I mean, her clients that, okay, we do have the expertise based on, yeah, I've been doing this forever, but our passion is to help people that don't have, and these people are amazing and they're absolutely underserved. And so with movement, it's a huge push for the comunidad, and that's why she's involved in it with everyone that's in that group across the nation. Really iron sharpening iron, trying to like, here's ideas, this is what I've done, this is here's some programs. So it's really cool to see that.
Yeah, and it goes back to that slice of pie.
Yeah.
Knowing the agent, whether it's a lender or a real estate agent, and finding out what, first of all, what motivates them, and then second part is based on that motivation, where's their skill set, and what type of people do you want to work with? What kind of niche people, what kind of people you want to work with?
Yeah.
It's just like lead generation. It's basically niche marketing, and it's finding exactly what your niche is and just going all in on it. And with the Spanish community, there's a niche in itself right there. Unfortunately, I don't work with a lot of Spanish speakers families, but I have closed deals. But the majority of my business is VA. Now, I'm trying to work. I'm going to try to work on two younger agents that are very fluent in Spanish, that do work in a very tight Spanish community. And so I'm trying to reach out to them and seeing if, because they're newer, they probably have good alignment, but they can have better alignment. Because I believe that I can help any type of agent, because that's one of the beauties of being in the military. You get exposed to all walks of life. And so,
well, and you have the systems down, right? You're a systems guy. And so it's easier for you, I would imagine, just to be able to plug people into your system. Like, okay, this is how we overcome this. I've already, because you've already thought about it. You've already experienced it. You've already done it, right?
Well, what I've learned, so let me go back to like a newer agent.
Okay.
When you first come in and become a real estate agent, the very first thing I think this is taught from Tom Ferry to team leaders at my KW office, to probably every brokerage out there, is you got to call your sphere. You got to let everybody know that you're in business. But the one thing, this is an epiphany that hit me, and it hit me kind of hard, when people that know you personally probably aren't going to do business with you for your first or second year. You got to build that street credit. So you got to let them know, but that doesn't need to be your business. Because I had people smile to my face, and when the rubber hit the road, they were using another agent that they didn't even know about, but they saw that they were productive, and because you're dealing with thousands of dollars. So, but they know when I was making love to a toilet. They know when I wasn't turning in my homework. They know they know everything about you. The people that do know you personally, and they're like, should I trust them? And it hit me hard. And Mary, I'm throwing this out to you. She asked me, she goes, why would I want to work with you? You're just brand new in the business. I mean, she was candid, and I love her for it. And I was like, that was an eye opener, like a poke in the eye at the time, but it was actually helped my business with just that little comment. It made me think, okay, I can't just focus on my sphere. And so I said, okay, I got to build a farm. And and I believe every agent needs to have their sphere, that they don't expect business from it for probably 2 to 3 years. Every agent needs to have a farm, and a farm means basically who you're going to be targeting to be in business, because real estate is, even though we make a lot of money, we are also responsible for our own advertising. We still have to put ourselves out there and spend money to get exposed. And some of these advertising is very expensive, as you probably know. It can go into thousands of dollars a month. And so when you're spending your hard-earned money, because you make this money, and then all of a sudden you're spending a third of it in advertising. And then you have the broker splits. So that goes back to alignment. Is your broker providing you the service for what you're paying?
And I think because of the market, like focusing on that and really trying to identify really what your value is, right?
Mhm.
If you don't know what your value is, how do you expect other people to know it?
Mhm.
And people will follow success, whether that's, and you literally hit it on the head. Yeah, I went with someone that they didn't know but does a lot of business. Okay, well, I can trust that they can get this done because obviously they do a lot of business. The other way of building that, in my opinion, and what I'm seeing as we're interviewing our friends and people that we feel that are successful, is that they're using something that is unique to them.
Mhm.
So you have obviously a huge place in your heart and a passion to help military families, because you felt that. I mean, there's a raw emotion there that we saw. I want to help people with cancer.
Mhm.
She wants to help people that, Hispanic families that, because she's seen what her parents have done to, get into a home, and how they were successful to do that. So finding something that, backwards and forwards, because you've dealt with it,
Mhm.
you felt it, it's a raw emotion, will give you a different type of energy that you can go out and, okay, I know this, I'm really comfortable with this, even though it might have hurt a little bit or stung a little bit or whatever. There's other people that need to hear that. And like, they're going to, in my opinion, there's an attraction to that piece of it. So even with EXP, there's, agent attraction where you're building a team, really, right? And you're pouring into them and helping them. That's attractive to people that are maybe at other brokerages are struggling a little bit, because you have the systems and you're speaking in confidence. And I mean, again, you were kind of coaching her a little bit on the initial call, and even kind of when we first met, right? It's actually really cool. So I don't know, that's just my take on what you're saying, and can appreciate that about you, what we're seeing, and what we've kind of talked about.
Well, and you're offering to help them
Right.
in this field that's
Yeah.
competitive. It's a
'Cause it's-
competitive field, and it's hard to do by yourself.
It-
But
Yeah,
you're going
washout
at it
rate's
as a
like
team.
80% the first year, 90% second year, right?
It's 87% success rate.
Yeah, there you go.
For renewal. So at least that's what NAR is telling us.
Sure.
The numbers might be off here and there.
Sure.
And so what I'm trying to do is the people that I get to know and I know they have potential, I like to meet them. If I see that potential, I don't want them to be that 87%.
Yeah.
I want them to be in the 13%.
And that's exactly what we feel when we talk to you, is because it's like because you can tell, it's like, I want to help you.
Yeah.
It's not about, because you put a lot of time into helping people be successful, and it's not necessarily just to help you, it's to help them. People feel that. We sense that.
Well, the beauty of it, and I'm probably going to do a shameless plug for EXP.
It's fair.
It's fair.
It's fair.
EXP allows us to be able to come from contribution and not have a contribution, come from contribution instead of a competitive mind. So it is one of the few brokerages that allows us to be broker owners. And so that means if you come and partner with me, I'm basically your broker owner. So I'm invested in your success. And another shameless plug, I like working with the younger agents because the way EXP allows us to have a retirement fund, if those younger agents are successful and I mentor them to be in the business 20 years from now, when it's time for me to leave, they're still in production, and we still have a thing called revenue share. And if you want to learn more about it, I can go into the whole thing, but that's not why I joined EXP. I joined EXP for other reasons. And it was more the way the splits were. And I didn't realize that all the stocks that we get but the broker owner, now that I've been here for 3 years, is really a retirement fund. And you can leave as a broker owner and still have a legacy that can go 80 years, 100 years from now.
That's great.
And I told my daughter this. My daughter's 19 years old. She goes to Western Oregon and she's doing American Sign. And
incredible.
Yeah. So I told my kids, I go, you guys are going to get your real estate license. And they're like, well, I don't want to do real estate. And I'm like, you don't have to do real estate. Just get your license. So I worked on my daughter first because she can actually niche market the American Sign community, the deaf community. And so we closed the deal a couple of weeks ago, and she got her first commission check, and she's like, "Okay, I'm all in."
Awesome.
Just a little convincing.
A little convincing,
awesome.
but the thing is, it allows me, if something happens to me, that rev share income, which is passive income, she can fall in my position, and that passive income can continue.
Wow.
Being in the industry for as long as I have, I know, quite a few agents, and then you see some of the agents where their kids are coming, of age where they're wanting to get into the industry, and I can tell you the ones that seem to have the most of that are EXP agents that I know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a couple John Scott, a couple Keller, but majority of that is EXP, and because I think it's because of that revenue share and that legacy piece that you're talking about, because so it's pretty impressive. And I mean, we can relate to that. I mean, movement. I mean, a lot of people don't know who or what movement mortgage is, right? Because it's kind of a East Coast started there, but we're very relevant here now. But having her come over into this industry, I don't think I would have her with any other company just because of our alignment, right? I mean, majority owned by a foundation. 49% of our profits go back to the communities. We're building schools. We pledge to do 100 schools in low income areas that people are absolutely underserved, and we have 4 that are going right now. So I mean, again, it's absolutely in alignment with what we believe and our philosophy. So it is different where you work and who you align yourself with and how successful you'll be with that, because doing this and meeting with people like you, I don't know, I don't see myself working at XYZ mortgage company and feeling confident enough, because this is celebrated because we're trying to help people and grow and pour into people and really establish and help the community at a whole, and our clients and everyone that we serve. So
here's the thing: if you love where you work, you'll advocate for your company,
Right?
Yeah.
and if you're
It's
happy
true.
there, it'll show. If I'm sold on something and I believe in it, I will sell it.
It's an easy
It's an easy.
conversation.
If you don't like the place that you work at, you're never going to sell it.
Right.
And I absolutely love being where I'm at now.
yeah, it's awesome.
I can't see myself going anywhere else.
We appreciate everything you've done
Yes.
for us, our country, and we consider you a friend and appreciate you, taking the time to come in today. And you're a good person. We see that, and we want to work with people that are in alignment, back to your point, right? With our, our core values. And so, it's probably not a normal thing to come and talk and kind of expose yourself a little bit and share, but we appreciate that. And so, we want to celebrate people that we feel are successful. And I think what you're doing is very successful, and what you've overcome and how you are helping people enrich their lives and you're pouring into them is to be applauded. So thank you.
And thanks for the
Appreciate it.
invite.
Yeah, absolutely.